right. Thank you, Samuel. Thank you to Suba Capital for this privilege of inviting me to, come and speak on this very important topic. Okay, so to the audience, you're welcome to this morning, session. All right. The topic that was actually given to me says that we're actually talking about the myth of the lone entrepreneur. And we're going to actually narrow it down to actually speak about why agribusinesses, SMEs, and farmers who refuse to actually cooperate would definitely or most likely actually fail by 2027. So I would actually like to start with a story. In 2004, a 34-year-old dairy farmer named Sada, right, from India, right, was asked a question by a journalist on why he actually drove, or why he's actually driving a Toyota Land Cruiser, while dairy farmers in the neighborhood states were barely surviving. And his answer was just 4 words long, right? The answer he actually responded, or the answer he gave to the journalist, was just 4 words long. And his response was, "I do not farm alone." That was what his response, was to the journalist. He responded to, the journalist by actually answering that, "See, I do not farm alone." Now, the reason he actually had this confidence was because his milk went into, same cooperative his father had joined in, right, in 1965. Don't forget that, Sada is actually a dairy farmer. So all of the milk he actually harvested from his ranch, right, or his dairy farm, actually go to a cooperative his father has actually joined in 1965. And I need you to actually follow me. I need the audience to actually follow me to really understand the story and where we are going, because you're about to actually learn a lot, right? So the cooperative is father had joined since 1965, had grown into something the world now know as Hamul. Amul is, I think, All Milk United Limited or something like that. I mean, this is actually a very, very real story, something you can actually fact check. It's an India Dairy Association, and this the largest, dairy corporation or cooperative on earth. By 2004, Amul was processing over 6 million liters of milk every single day, supplied by 2.6 million smallholder farmers across India, right, who individually own no more than 2 to 5 cows each. We're talking about, why cooperative is actually important, right? So, and I need every one of us to follow me this morning. So not a single one of these 2.6 million farmers was rich enough alone to build, a processing plant. Not one of them had the cold chain to actually get fresh milk, right, to Mumbai or Doha. Not one of them had the marketing budget to put a brand on a shelf in the supermarket. Not one of these farmers. But together, right, together as cooperative, they built a brand that today generates annual revenue of over that's 80,000 I think is it dirham or rupee, rather I think they spend rupee in India, right? 80,000 rupee, crores. That's roughly, if we're going to actually convert it to dollar, right, that's roughly about 9.5 billion US dollars. And, this actually built every multinational dairy competitors in their own country. I mean, look at what they are able to actually build because they actually form a cooperative. So the farmer in Gujarat was not smarter than everyone, right? Especially Nigerian farmers in this, in this particular broadcast or in this particular session that we're having right now. This particular guy's land was not, this particular guy's, land is actually not fertile than the land we actually have in Nigeria. His cows were not, superior. As a matter of fact, I mean, cows in Nigeria or cattle in Nigeria actually prefer to cattle everywhere in the world. And that is basically because, we actually do an open ranching. So our cows actually, or our cattle actually have, access to variety of food or grass, right? Which actually make them healthier and more nutritious, make their products, that's the meat, the milk, to be more nutritious and, more, I mean, to actually have more health benefits than every other cow in the world, right? So, I mean, the one thing that was actually different was a decision his father made in 1965 to stop, right, going alone, or to stop farming alone, or to stop, doing, dairy farm alone. So that is what today is about. We're actually talking about, you not going alone, you not doing business alone or farming alone, or starting and running your agribusiness alone. So that is the entire conversation, in one story. And I'm actually here today to tell you loudly, clearly, and with real numbers, that the farmers and agribusinesses who are still, going alone in 2026 are running out of time to make that same decision. Right? So I'm going to actually ask us a simple question, right? I want to ask everyone listening to me right now a very basic, simple question. And the question is, are you running your farm or agribusiness completely alone? You can type in the comment section, right? Or are you even running your SME? Especially for persons who are not into, the agribusiness, sector, or you are not doing anything around agriculture. If you are running, your SME, your agribusiness, or your farm alone, I want you to type, in the comment section. And of course, please feel free to actually do that. Feel free to do that. I'm pausing for you to actually type. And I want you to actually be honest, right? This is not you are not in an examination hall, so you can go ahead and actually type, right? And there is zero judgment in this room. The system actually, for a long time has celebrated a loner, people that actually do business alone, self-made and all. The system had also told us that, needing other people was actually weakness. So I want you to actually be sincere with yourself that, an average entrepreneur or agripreneur in Nigeria is actually, basically running alone, which is actually not a safe, place to be. And of course, everyone running alone, running their businesses alone, are actually running out of time. That is actually the basic truth. So let me be honest with you about something, right? I just want to be honest with you about something, as someone who had actually spent well over a decade in the agriculture space. The story of, the heroic solo founder, the person who trusts no one, share nothing, builds alone, and wins alone, that story has a very specific origin, right? And one thing you have to know is that, that is not an Africa ecosystem. The origin of this particular heroic solo founder is actually not, is not an African thing. And, that ecosystem was not actually originated or built in Lagos, in Nigeria. It was not built in Kenya. It was not built, in Egypt. It was not built in South Africa. But I mean, when we actually dig deep, right, we discover that this particular solo entrepreneurship or running your business alone mindset actually come from a place where we call Silicon Valley. I'm sure every one of us is actually, familiar with Silicon Valley. So this particular, mindset actually came from Silicon Valley in the 90s and in the early 2000s. Where a 22-year-old with a laptop and brilliant software idea and a $10 million check, from a venture capitalist, could build a $1 billion company without, ever needing to share a generator, sharing idea, sourcing for support and all of that, or even split bills, right? Split bills and maybe negotiate for market access and all of that, right? So this particular mindset of solo entrepreneurship, solo agripreneur and all of that actually originated from the Silicon Valley in the late 90s and the early 20s. So that world of solo entrepreneurship actually runs on intellectual property. You have to actually understand that it actually runs solely on intellectual property, not physical input, like our own business. Like, if you are in agribusiness, if you are doing anything in the agricultural value chain, you would understand that you are not just running an intellectual, property kind of business, right? You are not just dishing ideas. You are not just, lecturing some people. You get physical. You actually get to the field and actually put your hands to plow. You get yourself dirty on the field, right? If you are in the agriculture, this thing. So it's not all about intellectual property, but you needing other people. You actually coming, to actually achieve a lot of results by actually, applying physical input. And so we have to know that this actually runs on, on servers, right? Intellectual properties actually runs, on servers, not soil. It runs on network, efforts, not rainfall, right? It runs on network, right? It runs on network efforts and not rainfall, and critically, it runs on a financial system that will give a college dropouts with a good pitch, $50 million in funding before they have to actually make a single dollar of revenue, right? What this actually implies is this: as an agribusiness entrepreneur, right? One of the things that happen when you're actually trying to assess financial facility is they would ask you for your physical input, right? Not just an idea that you have in your head. The financial institution that you approach, or even the angel investors, right? Even if it's a free grant, right, that is actually coming to you, one of the things they would ask you is, what are the primary work you've done? They will ask you for the primary work you've done. They will ask you to actually show proof of concept, right? They will ask you for all of this. So that is not our world. You have to know that our world does not, our kind of business, our kind of environment does not actually run on intellectual property alone, but actually on, physical input, a physical input. So our world runs on physical input that must be physically, procured, right? There's, your transportation is not an intellectual or some mundane thing, right? Transporting inputs to farm and all of that. There have to be a physical store where you actually sell your farm produce or you store your farm inputs. There have to be, you have to take your agri produce to the farm. So which make it physical is not, is not a virtual, business you are actually running. So you have to actually understand this. And every single one of these steps actually would cost you money, right? Is actually going to cost you money. And when you do every single one of these when you do every single one of, these steps alone, you pay most expensive version of the cost every single time. If you run, a loan in the agriculture, ecosystem, you are actually going to actually pay more expensive, version of the cost. You are definitely going to actually do that. So let me give you, three numbers that, would actually help you. Three numbers I really want you to actually ponder about. And these are actually research from some of the reputable institutions, we have around. So the first number I want you to actually have at the back of your mind is 1.32 million naira. If you are listening from other country, you can actually convert that. Maybe you are listening from, maybe Kenya or this thing. I want you to actually just, have this particular number. You can do a conversion to your own, denomination. So according to data from, Nigeria Incentive-Based Risk Sharing System, for agricultural lending, by NIRSAL, that's NIRSAL. So you can fact check this. The average small commercial farm in Nigeria operating independently, please listen to that, operating independently spend between 1.6 million and 2.2 million per year on logistics alone. On logistics alone. So moving inputs, that's to move inputs to farm, moving produce to the market, hiring trucks, one at a time at retail haulage, rates. Because you do not have the volume as a farmer, you do not have the volume to actually negotiate a contract rate, right? You do not have. So you've had to, the prediction is that every year, if you run a loan, you are going to actually spend more, between 1.6 to 2.2 million naira on logistics. And that is for small, small farmers. Someone who actually run, let's say between a 5 to 10, right? Between 5 to 10 acres of farm. If you actually run, and all of this is actually happening, right? Because you don't have the volume to negotiate, to negotiate for a contract rate. Now, let's look at 10 farmers. If 10 farmers actually go together, pulling logistics, right, negotiating a share haulage, right, arrangement, their combined annual logistic costs, still reading from the data that was provided by NIRSAL, right, their combined annual logistic costs typically drop to 600 and 800, between 600 and 800, thousand naira, right? Look at, that particular drop in the expenditure or the cost they have to incur just by actually running, farm on logistics, right? So if 10 farmers actually split this way, that means if 10 farmers actually split, that means, their cost is going to actually 10 farmers, we said 600 to 800,000, right? So if 10 farmers actually come together to split this same bill, it means they will actually be paying 60 to 80,000 naira, per farmer per year. If they come together, right? If 10 farmers actually come together, and come together in alignment and actually cooperate together to negotiate, for a transport system or a logistics system, they'll be spending, way less. That's about 10% of the total cost they would have. Now, the farmer going alone is spending 1.9 million. The farmer in the cooperative is spending, 70,000. Same road, for the same road, that's the same distance, right? The same produce, same destination, but different decision. Right? So another number I want you to have at the back of your mind is, just write this somewhere, 47%. The World Bank's 2023 Nigeria Agriculture Sector Report estimates that smallholder farmer operating outside, structured cooperative, please pay attention to that, structured cooperative, because I know there are cooperatives that are really not structured. People just come together and there's no really structure, right? Operating outside structured cooperative or aggregated framework receive on an average 47% less for their produce than, farmers operating within structured, collectively selling, arrangement. Do we get that? Collectively, selling, that actually come together to sell collectively, right? So simply because individual farmers do not have the volume to attract institutional buyer, right? Or what we actually normally call maybe premium buyers, right? That's what they actually mean, institutional buyer. And so they sell to middlemen who capture the margin they should be earning. So the middlemen, if you are running a loan, trust me, you have been working for a middleman. You have been working, right, for a middleman. So 47% less revenue, not because they grow less, not because the farmer or the agribusiness, entrepreneur actually grow less, not because their produce is lower in quality, and it's not because they arrive at the market alone, instead they arrive together. They arrive as a cooperative. They arrive as an association, right? Then another number I want you to actually have at the back of your mind is 28% to 38, to 30, right? 28 to 36% is the annual interest rate a typical Nigerian small agribusiness pay on commercial bank rates, right? On commercial bank rates, when they can actually assess it at, that is even if they can actually assess that particular, bank, facility at all, right? Most farmers are actually not even structured enough to approach the bank or to have access, to bank facility. So now let's compare this to, to a Kenya agribusiness. We call the name of this Kenya agribusiness, Kenya's SACCO cooperative, where member farmers and smallholder businesses actually access, credit from their own cooperative savings, right, at 12% to 14%, per annum or per year. So the Kenya farmer is not luckier. No, they are not. If you listen, they actually can borrow from the pool, that's the savings of their cooperative, at 14% compared, to 28, compared to the 28 and 30% that a loan farmer would actually have access to, right? So the Kenya farmer is not luckier. We have to actually understand that. What actually stands them out is that they are not running their business alone. They are actually, in a cooperative. They are working, together as a cooperative, as an association, right? So they are not in a better economy. We have to really understand that. They are not in a better economy. Kenya's GDP, per capita is not dramatically higher than Nigeria's. That is it. Their GDP is actually not dramatically higher than that of Nigeria. They are in a better structure, or they have, a better structure. They built a cooperative saving system that actually gives them access to their own pool capital at a fraction of the cost of commercial, debt. So the lone entrepreneur in Africa, agriculture is not paying a premium, for independence. They are paying a penalty for isolation. And that penalty is compounding every single year. It's compounding, every single year. I'll just like to, jump. So I'd like to actually just show you some evidence, where cooperation is already winning, with real numbers. So I want to show you, 4 examples. I think I'll just, maybe because of my time, I'll just take maybe 1 or 2 of these examples, right? The number 1 example is, the data we read earlier about the AMUL, right? AMUL, the India cooperative, right? So AMUL was founded in, I think I should just move to, the second example, because we've actually read the data earlier. right? So that we can see other example. So the another example we should actually see is, it originates from New Zealand. The cooperative that actually contribute 30% of global, dairy trade. The New Zealand actually have a population of 5 million people. It is smaller than Lagos, yet it is one of the most powerful dairy exporter on the planet. The reason is a cooperative called Fonterra. All of these things can actually be fact-checked. So you can see that cooperation, you not working alone, actually work, and is going to actually save your business and help you to be sustainable and profitable, in a long time, right? So this particular, corporation was formed in 2001 when the New Zealand government encouraged dairy farmers to merge their cooperative, structure. Today, Fonterra is owned by approximately 10,000 New Zealand dairy farmers and exports, dairy products to 140 countries. Its annual revenue exceeds, 22 billion, I think, New Zealand dollar, right? Approximately 13 billion US dollars. The average Fonterra member farmer earns a milk price that is consistently among the highest in the world. Not because New Zealand has the cheapest land, or the best climate, but because 10,000 farmers speaking with one structured voice have more negotiating power than any single, multinational they sell to, right? They have, the negotiating power because they have a structure to say no if you are not actually yielding or accepting their own price. They have, they've built that cooperative, structure. So the lesson for Nigeria is direct. We have more dairy cattle than New Zealand. Fact. We have more land. We have more farmers. What we do not yet have is a cooperative infrastructure, that turn individuals, production into collective commercial power. That is what we are currently lacking, right? That is what we are currently lacking. I would have actually taken, the other examples, right? But I really can't do that now because of my time. So I want to be very, I want to actually be very careful with the next line of thought, right? Because I have been to enough conferences to know that inspiration without, instruction. Sorry. Sorry, thought I got a call from the host. Okay. So, so I want to be really very careful, right, with my next line of thought and contribution, right? Because, I've been to enough conference, to know that inspiration without instruction will change nothing, right? So I'm not here to actually inspire you. I'm not here to actually, just give you some motivational, words and all of that, but to help you to actually see that you running alone as a business owner, right, is not safe for you. And being in a cooperative or coming together in collaboration and partnership, with other folks in your line of business would actually help you save capital and help your business, to be sustainable, for a very, very, very long time, right? For a very, very long time. So you will leave this broadcast feeling, energized, and, by Monday, you would arrive and nothing will be different because, nobody told you what to do. So we are here to actually, mention to you. So let me give you some 5-step, practical 5-step that is actionable and that you can actually, run with. And number one, let's run through this, very quickly. Number one, right? The number one thing you have to do for you to actually, take a step towards collaborating, partnering, or joining a cooperative that worked. Please, a cooperative that works or that is working, not, we have several associations in Nigeria that they are just there to collect money from the government, and really, they are not, that cooperative is really not benefiting, the business, apart from the money they actually collect from the government and share within themselves, and that is all, right? So the number one step, right, you should take, by Monday, is do a resource audit with your, neighbor, before you talk about vision. That is the number one step. And how do you do that? So before you form any cooperative, right? Before you form any cooperative, before you elect any chairman, before you, write any constitution, sit down with 5 to 10 people who farm or operate, businesses in your immediate area, and answer 3 questions with numbers and not feelings, data and figure, which means you must have actually researched everything. You must understand your business, and the other, entrepreneur you are actually forming cooperative with must also actually understand their business, whatever business they are actually running now, right? So you are not actually forming a cooperative based on feeling. Like I said, I didn't come here to actually motivate you, but to actually show you what to do. So question number 1, right? Some of the questions you need to ask. Question number 1, what are each of us spending money on that we could be sharing, right? So list it. After you list, you quantify it, right? You quantify it. You get to know whether you are spending money on generator fuel, where you can actually just pull the money you spend in 6 months or 1 year together to actually, have a power solar grid, right? To actually maybe just build a solar grid that, the 5 of you or the 10 of you that come together will be using, right? So you have to actually, come together to do that particular audit, right? The second question you all have to ask each other as a cooperative is, what are each of us buying separately that we could buy together at a lower price? Could it be fertilizers? As a matter of fact, you will be shocked that the number of fertilizers you actually use, that the 10 of you use, can actually buy directly from Dangote refinery, instead of you buying, from a retail store at a more expensive price, right? You will be shocked. So you need to actually find out, is it seed, is it fertilizers, is it, packaging material, agrochemicals, or feed? What is it that you guys are spending individually? You are spending much more money on that you can actually come together to buy. The question number 3 you need to ask when you are forming a cooperative is, what are each of us trying to sell in small quantity that we could sell together at a better price? Let me tell you something. When farmers actually come together, and that's why you see some big, aggregators like Apex, Famplify, I think Tribe Greek, they are actually leveraging. Of course, we have, as a middleman, we are willing to pay farmer more if you guys can actually come together. If there's a farming community selling to us, right, as cooperative, selling to us, as cooperative, not just as individual farmers. So you want to know what are the things you are actually, selling individually that you can actually aggregate, because aggregation, to meet the quantity the buyer is looking for would actually help you to negotiate, right, much better. So write the actual numbers down. So if 10 poultry farmers, for example, in your area are each spending 95,000 per month on cold room, hire, and using, perhaps let's say 30% to 40% of that cold room, capacity, you are collectively spending 950,000, per month on cold room. Yeah, if you do that alone, if you are actually paying for cold room and you can't even produce to actually fill up the cold room, it means that the 10 of you are actually spending, much more. Imagine the 10 of you actually come together and rent, that same capacity, right, for 95, thousand naira, instead of spending times 10 of that particular amount, right? You'll be spending 95,000, per month on cold room you are mostly, not using. But this is it. A shared, properly managed cold facility used at 80% capacity, costs roughly 280 to 320,000 naira per month at commercial rates, right? Instead of spending, the 10 of you actually spending 950, thousand naira. So split that particular amount, that's 320,000 naira. If you all come together, that means each of you will be spending between 28,000 to 32,000, per farmer. That's per month. I can really go on and on, giving examples, right? Giving examples on how this thing can actually work. Now, the number two thing, just running quickly, right, is when you are forming a cooperative, you have to build, governance before you pull any money. You have to build a governance structure, right, before you actually pull any money. And how does this work, right? How does this work? This is where almost every cooperative in Nigeria actually fail. No governance, right? An average cooperative, if you go into farming communities, you will hear, oh, we're a community of A, B, C, and that. And you are asking them for the structure, and you will realize that many of them really do not actually have structure, right? Of course, I'm aware that there are cooperatives here and there, but do your cooperative have, a working governance structure that actually favors every farmer in that particular community, right? So I'd move very quickly. So the number three thing, you have to do if you are forming a cooperative is start with one share function, right? Start with one share function and make sure you win with that one function first. Now, what that means is this: don't try to actually achieve too many things at a time. Don't try to achieve too many things at the time. Having too many things at the start can actually muddle up things and actually, dilute the essence, right, of the cooperative. So if you have one share function together, meaning you can say, okay, what can we actually start buying together? Can we start buying input together? Maybe we buy fertilizers together. Let's see how much we're actually going to save. Then from there, you move maybe to, okay, let's see if we can actually buy and save money, and save money from buying, maybe seedling together. Let's see, just pick one. Don't actually jump, full into everything. Everyone should actually come together and have, one shared function together and, win in that first. Set a very proper structure. Of course, it will take time for you guys to actually adjust and even learn new things as cooperative and all of that. It's not a sprint. It's actually a marathon. You have to actually know that building a cooperative is not, something we quickly form, to quickly achieve something, right? You are in around the just one shared function, the more stronger you actually become, right, as a cooperative. Then the number four thing is this. This is actually very, very underrated, is you have to digitalize, every activities that is going on within the corporation. And this would actually help you to actually gain transparency, layers early. Just digitalize, the transparency layer early. Digitalize the transparency, the transparency layer early. Just make sure that you guys actually come together. Maybe you can actually pay for some, maybe CRM or EPR. Is it ERP or EPR now, right? That's enterprise is it process, resource, or something, right? You guys can pay and actually document everything, right? Document everything. And guess what? This is actually what will help the cooperative to be able to actually access financial facility, or just walk up to an investor to say that this is what we've been able to do, this is what we've been able to save. This is the advantage we have, right? This is the advantage we have. As a loan farmer, you have to know something. As a loan farmer, you have to know something. You are not competing, right, with cooperative, just by them being cooperative alone. You are working against, a very defined structure. Cooperative are able to actually buy their own input at a cheaper rate. You are not able to actually do the same because you don't have, you don't have the negotiating, capacity. You are probably buying maybe like 10 bags while they are buying a truck. They can negotiate the cost of transportation. They can negotiate the cost of each bag of the fertilizer, right? They can negotiate each cost of the bags of the seeds they are buying, right? So you are not actually competing. You have to know that as a loan farmer, you are, permit me to use the word, you are actually out of the game of competitiveness, from the very first day, right? From the very first day. That is why you will see, some businesses some businesses are able to actually sell their produce at a cheaper rate compared to yours. And you are wondering why you are waiting and storing. You are storing your commodity, waiting for market price to go up, right? And all that. And you eventually discover that this thing is not going up. You need money. Then you sell at a very disadvantaged price. So you are not actually, you are not, competing against just a cooperative, the farmers in cooperative. You are actually competing against their structure. Let that actually, let that sink in. So to form a cooperative, another thing you have to actually pay attention to is, connect to institutional infrastructure, once you are structured. Don't forget that if you digitalize, you are able to actually track, like they will say, anything that is not actually recorded, cannot be improved on. You understand? Cannot be improved on. You cannot even track progress. You cannot track where, where the weaknesses and the strength of the cooperative, lies. So it's important that after you've actually digitalized, the next thing you are doing is you are connecting to institutional infrastructure, once you are structured. Once you are structured. So what this is actually going to do is that it's going to open, the cooperative, to a very large opportunity, right? The very large opportunity, like the Amur. If you read their record, because they actually come together, bring that number of farmers together, you would see that they were able to actually, access a very huge, financial facility from banks, investors, and all of that. As a matter of fact, once you are structured, right, you will see investors start knocking on your door, not you even running after them, right? Not you actually running after them. Someone's hand is up.
Yes, that would be me. So I just want to notify you to quickly wrap up.
All right, thank you.
Right.
All right. So connect to institutional, infrastructure. Once you have actually, gained structure, right? Once you have actually gained structure, this would actually, help you have access, to incredible opportunities that actually exist within your line of production or your line of business, right? So closing now. Let me just jump, right, because of my time. Sorry, trying to actually. Okay, so you have to know that the decision, right, of being a lone entrepreneur is already costing you. So the question is, how much longer will it cost you if you want to remain, right? If you want to remain a lone entrepreneur, if you want to remain, a lone agribusiness owner or agripreneur, right? How much longer will this, cost you? So let me just, close with something, quite, very personal. So every week at Famplify, I sit in a room with agricultural investors, right? Institutional funds like, the DFIs, family office, impact investors who want to actually deploy capital into Nigeria agriculture. They want to, really. The money is actually, the research actually even data actually show that there is more money in circulation right now and more money going after businesses right now. But many businesses are actually not really positioned and structured enough to actually, receive the funding, So, all of these people actually want to deploy capital into Nigeria, agribusiness. Every week, the same conversation eats the same wall. We want to invest. We cannot find structure, right, operators to invest in. Every week, every time, the question, they are throwing back at businesses or throwing back at, organizations such as us that actually help agribusinesses actually structure is, say, look, we can't find any agribusiness or any SME to actually put money in. So the question I want to ask you on a final note and I close out is, will you continue, right? Or how long are you going to continue to actually operate as a lone entrepreneur, as a lone business owner, right? You have to understand that being a lone entrepreneur or a lone business owner is actually costing you a lot, while actually forming collaboration, belonging to a cooperative would actually, save you a lot of costs, help you to be more profitable, and also keep your business to be sustainable, and be around for a long time. I hope this helps. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joshua. Thank you so much for the insight that you have dropped with us here. So, at this point, we're going to a round of question and answer. So if you have any question, you could drop it in the chat box, or you could just signify by raising your hand, and then I would call on you to come up. So does anyone have a question? Okay, we have one question from Silas. Okay, while Silas is asking this question, if any other person have, you could just simply raise your hand. So, Silas, you have the floor.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, and I hope you are enjoying the World Cooperative Day and all that we're sharing. So, thank you so much, Joshua. Mine is not a question; it's more of a contribution in addition to what has been shared. Most of the reasons why Super Capital currently exists today is because of some of the things that Joshua has shared, right? Right from day one, we have come to the realization that people cannot actually succeed alone, and that is why we are here. That's why Super Capital exists, and everything that Joshua has shared today is more than enough reason. It just goes to show, because Joshua was not there when we started Super Capital. But it just goes to show that whether you are part of the system or whether you are not part of the system, the facts are the same. You cannot succeed alone. And that's why we're talking to entrepreneurs every other year. That's why we're talking to small business owners. We operate a cooperative finance structure at Suba Capital, and that is what we are doing. So I'm just layering that on what has been every single principle that has been shared this morning is basically this principle that guides our operation and the principle that helps us to be able to help small business owners, young professionals to be able to create wealth for themselves over a long period of time. Thank you so much, Joshua, for all you have shared this morning. We really appreciate. And for those that have questions, please put them in the chat box. I just want to also take this quick time to recognize the presence of the Ministry of Cooperative in Edo State. They are currently present here, the registrar and some of the officials are present here today. Thank you very much for joining. They are our regulators in Edo State. So we just want to recognize your presence. Thank you for joining. Sam, the mic is yours.
All right. Thank you so much. While we wait for questions to come in, Mr. Joshua, I have some questions that I penned down while your session was ongoing. So, the first question I have is because looking at the African ecosystem, with looking at Nigeria specifically, you could clearly see that most SMEs, they see other businesses as competitors rather than potential collaborators. So why do you think this is so, and what are some ways we can fix that ideology?
All right, thank you. So basically, I think one of the major, problem with one of the ideology rather, with Africans doing business in Africa, right, is trust no one. You understand? Everyone is actually, being suspicious of the next person. And whereas if you actually ask, if you call individual into a private conversation, they will tell you that they can be trusted. So the question is, why is it that we are not actually, really trusting ourselves? Then another reason why a lot of people are actually not collaborating, or perhaps seeing themselves as seeing other business as competitors, is because everyone have the ideology of wanting to actually make all the profit for themselves, right? Not knowing that, of course, to make the profit, you have to actually be at a level. Dangote is actually not running alone. He actually have a lot of, pool capital to be able to do what he's doing at the scale he is. And that's because he had been able to actually, prove over the years that he's actually credible enough to manage your capital and make more money for you. But you that you are just starting, you want to actually run alone, right? You want to make the money alone. That is actually the mindset of an average African entrepreneur. Let me just do it alone so that I can actually make the money alone. And you have to know that we keep things a lot from ourselves. Oh, I don't want to actually review my strengths and weaknesses, right? That is another reason why a lot of people are actually not really doing businesses, together, not collaborating or coming together to form a cooperative. I don't want them to know, right? What my weaknesses are. Well, if I should tell them about this now, they might use it against me, tomorrow. Forgetting that, see, if your weaknesses is actually not revealed as a business, you cannot move past where you are. Secondly, you can actually not get help. You can't get help if you are actually hiding and actually putting your weaknesses as a business, under the bucket, right? And shielding it. So basically, these are the major major reasons why agribusinesses or, SMEs or businesses, people doing businesses, people doing, the same kind of business, or people that are in the same line of business are actually not collaborating. Instead, they are seeing themselves, as competitors. Another thing is this, which is very much related to, everybody wanting to make the money alone, is that every, a lot of businesses are actually just lying to themselves, right? In Africa, you will see someone who calls himself or herself an entrepreneur without actually having any form of business to show for it. But they are out there on social media putting the font that is not genuine. So for you that you don't have any business, you don't have any structure, but you consistently show everywhere that you run a kind of business, you don't have the stance, or you don't have the structure or anything to actually, go into collaboration with anyone with, right? So we should stop. The major thing is this. If you didn't get anything, you should just understand that every business owner, if you call yourself an entrepreneur or if you call yourself a business owner, one of these thing you have to come to terms with is this: stop lying to yourself. You can't run alone. All of those lies you have in your head for not wanting to actually, cooperate or go into collaboration and all of that is actually not worth it. From the day one of you starting a business, you would need, to collaborate. You would need to actually run your ideas through someone. You have to understand that. You will need to actually bring expertise, into, even basic ideas, basic, MVP that you have. Now, not to talk of you actually having, you having started the business and, wanting to actually get to the stage of, growing the business, or maybe crowdfunding, or, getting angel investors. So the major reason is that a whole lot of, African business actually are truly not truthful to themselves and, not truthful to other people. Thank you.
All right. Once again, I want to say a big thank you to Mr. Joshua for really going into. And for me, I love your presentation. You included statistics, you included reports, so it doesn't look as if we are just giving theories, but your session was backed with facts and statistics. So once again, I want us to give a virtual round of applause to Mr. Joshua for delivering such an in-depth lecture for our session today. Thank you very much, sir, for agreeing to come on the call today. So we'll be moving on to the next activity which we have with us here, and that is our panel session. We'll be moving over to our panel session now, where we'll have two persons. Okay, I think we have one question. Someone just raised his hand. Sheung, do you have a question? Oh, that was a mistake.
Yes, I do.
All right.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for the very insightful session to our speaker. I have a question as well as a comment. I will do the question first. I want to know the current level of institutional backing that cooperatives enjoy in Nigeria. I know there are some talks about cash transfers that government is doing and all of that. How much of that is passing through the ecosystem of cooperatives? Or if none, how can we position cooperative societies or that ecosystem to function a lot more in, they say G2C, government to citizens, all these cash transfers. Cooperatives can bring in their expertise and even make it more robust. So how much of that are we currently doing? And if not, if none, how can we together fashion out something and speak to the people in government? in those institutions. That's number one. Then, secondly, I think that this is my comment. Economic systems are closely linked to political systems. Okay, for instance, now we have Western liberal democracy. We know it thrives on the ideology of liberalism, economic liberalism, and if you will, capitalism. So this cooperative system, is a bit aligned more with our African way of life. If you look at the division, Europeans, Westerners are mostly individualistic people. Africans are communal people. Historically, we know about most tribes in Nigeria have one form of what they call sweat equity, whereby we come together. This month we build someone's house. Next month, in traditional Igbo society, traditional Yoruba society, coming together to do farm work for one person. Then the next time we go to another person's farm. The same thing they've used it to solve housing challenges, social kind of where we come together. Everybody brings their expertise. You are a tiler, you are a bricklayer. We gather and build your house. Next 2 months, we do for another person. By the end of 2 years, everybody in that group has a house. Those are like our systems. Ubuntu philosophy. I am because we are. Personally, I try to develop a political system around the communal lives that Africans already live. The power of community, the power of collectiveness, the power of consensus-driven governance, rather than democracy that we have that normally pits people against one another. Democracy works with, once you have 51%, whether you are right or wrong. Political scientists, philosophers call it tyranny of the majority. That's by the way. So, it's in form of a comment that we should do more work around rallying this cooperative model around an ideology. I was saying personally, I came up with something based on one thing I heard from President Obasanjo, former President Obasanjo, when he was saying that Western liberal democracy has failed. For 2 years, that rattled me. I took it up as a challenge. I was able to ideate, and I came up with Buntocracy based on the social principle of Ubuntu. We can check that out on, I created a link, a website for it, buntocracy.com. That's BUNTO, then crazy, buntocracy.com. How even community-based organizations, political parties, organizations can use it to better the systems they currently run. Even while we are hoping that it becomes an acceptable governance model across Africa, we are working on that. But organizations can start testing out its basic principles, which leverage the power of community, and the power of our collective and communal way of life that we already have in Africa. So that's by the way of comments. Once again, thank you for a wonderful session.
Okay, thank you. I think there was a question there that was asked earlier.
Okay. The question, I think, if I get it correctly, what benefit do cooperatives actually currently enjoy from the government? I hope I'm correct, Mr. Shell.
Yes, kind of something like that. Like, what's the level of engagement they currently have with government?
Okay, so I'll need to actually ask what line of business you are in, sir.
I run a tech startup in Abuja.
Okay. I'm not so much a tech person, right? But I can actually speak a bit for, the agriculture, space. And I believe if you,
Sorry, then I mentioned this this current government interventions that they are doing, is there no way to integrate? Because I know cooperatives will manage those funds better. You will hear something $1 billion have been shared in 1 year, and you can't see the impact anyway. Is it because the cooperative ecosystem is not being carried out? I feel like those systems are failing because they don't have the expertise to run them. Cooperatives do better.
Okay, so
Well,
Mr. Silas,
um,
if you could take up
yes, I would allow Silas
next week because I think he's more knowledgeable in that area.
actually speak on the tech. Yes, I will allow him to speak, right? So, I mean, speaking from the angle of what you just said about, government actually sharing, saying that they shared money to cooperatives and all of that. If we actually spotlight that and narrow it down to, to Nigeria government and, maybe agricultural cooperatives in Nigeria, we actually know that I'm in the space. Many of these things is actually not real. And so all of these things is actually happening where some persons is actually just sitting on the benefits that is actually coming right from the federal government. So to the question you ask on what are the benefits, like I said, I'll speak to the agricultural aspect alone. So if you form a cooperative, registered, structured cooperative, you have run the cooperative, for some time. One of the facility you can easily, I'm just going to mention one and allow, Silas actually talk about the cooperatives benefits that exist within the tech ecosystem, right? If you have structure in the agriculture, cooperative system, and you've run for a bit, have track record, one of the things you can, one of the benefits you can actually access, is from, the Bank of Agriculture, right? You can actually write a proposal to scale, right? To scale the operations of your cooperative, and take it to Bank of Agriculture. And trust me, if your operations is genuine, if your record is intact, you are going to actually access the facility, right? I mean, that is directly from the government. And the thing is this, some DFIs also actually are looking for cooperatives to fund, right? I mean, we've got a whole lot of requests asking if we have cooperatives, farming cooperatives, that, I mean, DFIs. I mean, someone was still actually in my DM on LinkedIn earlier this year asking if we have, farming community and all of that. At the end of the day, when you give, let me not go there. At the end of the day, when you actually go to actually find out the structure these people have, you notice, I mentioned earlier that a whole lot of cooperatives are just existing to collect money they will share within themselves without actually providing the results, right? And that's why I mentioned that, see, you have to actually have a proper governance structure, then an operational, structure that you are running. There are actually a lot of DFIs. There is, the federal government of Nigeria, benefits that you can actually access. If and of course, if the host of this particular conference will not mind, we can actually have a conversation, and I can open you up to more, cooperative. That's if you are thinking of going into the agriculture business, maybe now or in the future. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So in the next in the next few minutes, we just have Mr. Silas quickly speak on that for the tech space.
Okay, so thank you, Sam. Thank you, Joshua, for sharing all of this. One of the reasons why we share some of these things is because we want people in our community to be able to learn. Right? Thanks, Shane, for the question, and it possibly opened the eyes of a lot of people who are either in the room right now watching live or are going to watch the replay to learn one or two things. For instance, the Super Capital Cooperative model is not just a financial system that we use to operate a microfinance system. We have tech entrepreneurs here. We have business owners here. We have all sorts of professional people within the system. Now, what we've been preaching on since yesterday is what Joshua has built on. Number one, there has to be records. So a lot of people do not assess funding because their structure is wrong. That's why we have built a system where there is a structure that is verifiable. Number two, it's not just agriculture alone. A lot of people make that mistake that it is one particular sector in the economy that is being funded through cooperative systems. Not true, right? While the agriculture side might be more popular, which is what Joshua have spoken to earlier, the honest truth is there are funds going out for technology, because the technology, the ministry, for example, the 3 million talent project that the Federal Ministry of Technology is running, some cooperatives have tapped into that, right? Or some tech people have come together as a cooperative and then tap into that to access funding for training for tech gadgets like laptops and phones and all of that. So it's almost the same process like has been explained for agriculture, but towards a different ministry. So if you come together as a tech cooperative, you can approach the government to say, we want to get more training, we want to get more laptops. In our case, we are doing for microfinance services, helping people to access capital easily and affordably. And that's what we're doing, right? So we are a living, breathing example of what has just been described in the financial space, right? We have come together as a cooperative in the financial space to access capital on behalf of our members and then to pull capital together as a group. So the principle is the same. The application is what's different. So if you want to access funding and training and everything for a particular industry, look at what ministry speaks or what government ministry speaks to that particular industry and reach out to them. Definitely, there's some funds sitting that you can access. I hope this helps. And like has been suggested, it's not something we can deep dive into on a live session. It's something we can then take outside the room on a one-to-one.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Silas, for timely
Thank you.
response. And Sheon, thank you so much for bringing that up with us. So would